Good morning. This is Mr. Varon with the solution to Thursday's problem of the day. This was from Thursday, April 16th. So it said Teresa put tiles marked with the letters of her name into the bag. The back of each tile is blank. The tiles are shown below. So there's a T, E, R, another E, S, and an A. Without looking into the bag, Teresa will pick a tile. Part A, what is the probability or chance that Teresa will pick a tile with the letter T on it? Show or explain how you get your answer. Part B, what is the probability or chance that Teresa will pick a tile with a vowel A-E-I-O and U on it? Show or explain how you get your answer. And suppose Teresa first picked a tile with a vowel on it. Now Teresa will pick a second tile. She will not put the first tile back in the bag. She will not look into the bag while picking the second tile. What is the probability that Teresa will pick another tile with a vowel on it? Show or explain how you get your answer. So if we look over here at the possible solutions. So part A, I want to know what was the chance that Teresa would pick a tile with the letter T out of it. So we're looking at this. So here are her tiles. So there is one letter T. So we would say that it would be a 1 out of 6 chance. Now why 6? Because there are 6 total tiles. Now that's one way of writing probability. We could also write probability as a fraction. So 1 out of 6 would be 1/6. And we can also read this as 1 out of 6 or 1 divided by 6 because fraction is really division. There's another way of writing it too, which is called a ratio. So this would be 1 to 6. So that would be the ratio, 1 to 6 ratio. So basically the chances of a pulling would be 1 out of how many choices altogether? 6. Now, a lot of times you see it also written as a percent. Now, how you get to a percent, which in this case the answer is going to be 16.7%, is you're actually going to do division. So when we do this, we are going to do 1 divided by 6. Now, a lot of kids say, well, you can't do 1 divided by 6 because 1 is smaller than 6. You actually can. Okay, we have this conversation with our 5th graders a lot. When we do this, though, we are going to end up with a smaller answer. So we're going to end up with something that's going to be a decimal form. And then we want to change that decimal, okay, into a percent. So now how do you do that? So I've done that down below here. So if you look here, I've made this 1 divided by 6. Now evidently if I have 1, I cannot make groups of 6. So what I'm going to actually do is I am going to put a decimal point here because in a whole number, the decimal is always after the whole number. And once I do that, I can what's called annex 0. So I can add zeros to this and it doesn't change the value. That's still going to be 1. So once I annex the zeros, I want to go to a place where I can round this, in this case, to the nearest 10th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 0. So now I have 10. I can make one group of 6. I'm going to subtract 6. I'm going to end up with 4. I'm going to add another 0. Bring down the 0, that's 40. I can make another group of, I can make 6 groups of 6. So 6 times 6 is 36. 40 minus 36 is 4. I annex another 0. I'm going to bring that down. That's going to be 40 again. How many groups can I make? I can make 6 groups of 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Now what you see here is this is going to keep repeating. Okay, so we put a little line above this saying that this is going to repeat. So really it's going to be 0.166666, and that's going to keep going on forever and ever. So what I want to do now is I want to take this decimal and I'm going to multiply it by 100 in order to get a percent. So over here I have 0.1666, okay, and that's going to keep repeating over and over again. And since I'm multiplying by 100, I'm really just moving my decimal 2 spaces over. So 1, 2 spaces, the decimal is going to be now going between the first 6 and the second 6, so it's going to be 16.66. Now, since I'm estimating here, okay, and I'm rounding this, this 6 tells me that this 6 is going to become a 7. So it's actually going to estimate or round to 16.7%. So that's how we get the percent for part A. So again, there's different ways. We came up with 4 different ways in which I can write that ratio. Now that's the harder of them. When we get down here, we get to a little bit easier ones, especially when it comes time to get to the percentages. So on the next one, they want to know what the chances are that she picks a vowel out, A, E, I, O, and U. So if we look here, we're basically going to just count how many vowels she has. So she has an E, and an A. So she has 3 vowels. We know that she has a total of 6 tiles, so it's going to be 3 out of 6. Now 3 out of 6 as a fraction could be written as 3 over 6. Okay, we can also reduce that 3 over 6 is really the same as a half, 1 over 2. Now, most of you can look at a half and realize that what that is as a percent is 50%. You can also write it as a ratio, 3 to 6, or I could write it as 1 to 2. Now, again, I did do the division on this so you can see it. So even though some of you might know a half is the same as 50%, if we look down here at the division, I'm really doing 3 divided by 6. So again, if I have 3, I cannot make a group of 6. So I'm going to put an X or a placeholder above that. I'm going to put my decimal point, and I'm going to annex a 0. So now if I have 30, how many groups of 6 can I make? I can make 5, and I don't have any left over. So this is going to become 0.5, or I could write it as 0.50. Now, why did I write it that way? Because I know when I multiply by 100, I need to be able to move it over 2 spaces. So I'm going to need that 0 there in order to move my decimal 2 spaces over. So this 0.50 is actually going to become 50%. So there's a 50% chance that she pulls out a vowel. Now, on part C, it's saying that she picked a vowel first. So it doesn't really matter which one she picked. She could have picked the E or an A. It doesn't really matter. But once she pulls that out, she is not going to put it back in the bag. So now when we look at this, we're really saying that one of these vowels is gone. So now what are her chances of pulling another vowel out? So if we look here, well, there are what? 2 vowels left over out of now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total tiles. So this ratio is going to change slightly. Why? Because now we don't have the same amount of tiles in the bag. So it's going to be a 2 out of 5 chance. Or we could write it as a fraction, 2/5, or as a ratio, 2 to 5. Now, again, in order to get this to be a percent, we'll have to divide 2 divided by 5. And I've done that down here. And again, this is another easy one to divide. So if I have 2 and divide it by 5, I cannot make a group. So I put an X or placeholder there. I'm going to need to put my decimal point at the back of my 2 and annex a 0. So now if I have 20, can I make groups of 5? Yes, I can make 4 groups. 4 times 5 is 20. I have nothing left over. So this is going to become 0.4 because that X is really a 0. It's just a placeholder. Now again, I wrote it over here as 0.40. Why? Because I'm going to multiply by 100, which means my decimal needs to be able to move over 2 spaces. So I'm going to need that 0 there, so I annexed it. So it didn't change the value, but I put it there. Now I can move my decimal over 2 spots, and now this becomes 40%. So again, the chances of her pulling out another vowel would be 40%. So hopefully you found that solution helpful. Hopefully you came up with something similar. And again, there's multiple ways we can write probability or chance. So again, we can write it as a statement, 1 out of 6. We could write it as a fraction. We can write it as a ratio. We can also write it as a percent. Have a great day. Bye.